What's up? This is Jason from Death Therapy, and we're about to discuss metal.
This is the Discuss Metal podcast with Jason Wisdom of Death Therapy. Hosted by Dan Terry. Presented by discussmetal.com.
I have the pleasure tonight of sitting down with Jason Wisdom of Death Therapy. How you doing tonight, man?
Hanging in there. How about you?
Doing pretty good. We're all healthy over here in Missouri.
Yeah, that's what counts.
Yep, absolutely. Well, we were just in the news actually in Missouri. There were a bunch of people at Lake of the Ozarks over Memorial Day weekend.
That.
Yeah, we were the ones that made the news. So that's
I saw that. Well, Georgia. I'm in Georgia, and we were the ones who the headline was we were doing a human sacrifice experiment when we started reopening 2.5 weeks ago or whatever. So I guess we're all in the news.
Yeah, I think every state or every individual has their own way of dealing with this stuff. So
yeah, totally.
We're all figuring it out together. Well, the cool thing that I wanted to talk to you about tonight was you've got a brand new single out, an instrumental single, and it is with Guardian Awakening. It's interesting. I was listening to it a lot today, and because usually when somebody's like, "Oh, I'm releasing an instrumental song," I'm like, "Oh, okay," but
right.
But whenever I actually heard it, you got quite a bit going on with this one. So I guess what inspired you to put an instrumental? I guess it's going to be a series of songs because I know you got another one on the way as well.
Yeah, so, there's actually a second one coming out on Friday this week, the 29th. I don't know when this will air, but anyway, it comes out on the 29th. But point being, I'm doing a whole EP of instrumental stuff. So instrumental songs have always been a part of the Death Therapy, catalog. There's at least 2 instrumental tracks per record, and I've done 2 records. And a lot of bands, when they do instrumental stuff, they'll either do it's just be a soft. Excuse me, my allergies. It's not the Rona, but they'll do a soft piano song or something, something totally different from their style. And I just thought, Death Therapy style is kind of like groovy, electronic. Metal, experimental metal. I think it'd be cool to just kind of dive really hard into the electronic elements and push a little bit more in the dance, EDM or whatever you want to call it, dubstep kind of direction, for a few tracks. And so that's what I wanted to do. And that's what these songs are. But because they don't have any words, I thought, well, I should do something a little special for these songs. And so I thought I would feature some of my favorite guitar players playing guest guitar solos, because some people don't know this, but Death Therapy music doesn't have guitar on it. Like, it's just my bass with distortion. So I thought, well, it'd be kind of cool to bring in, for these songs. So it gives people something to look forward to, even if they're not really into the instrumentals. It's kind of like, oh, cool. Well, Guardian Awakening, the song you mentioned, that has a solo from Daniel Gailey, who's in Fit for a King, and he was in Becoming the Archetype with me, and he's in Phineas. So he's a well-known, shredder. And then the one that comes out on the 29th has got Jack from War of Ages. So, it gives people a little icing on the cake, hopefully. And maybe hopefully they like the songs as well. So
it's cool because the first time I heard Death Therapy, back when the first album came out, I remember being like, yeah, I know there's no guitar on here, but I don't miss it, or I don't really notice.
Yeah.
You almost don't even notice it when you're just listening and jamming out, because you're still hearing a loud, distorted instrument, so it
Right.
serves the same purpose. But whenever I heard Guardian Awakening, I was like, man, like it's weird, the notable difference of hearing like some guitar shred on these songs and just being something totally different than what we were expecting.
Right, totally. Well, I didn't just want to add guitar parts. I thought, if I'm going to add guitar, let's just go all the way, and feature some solos. So.
Well, and one thing I've noticed too, and you're not alone in this, but you've been obviously much more active on social media, due to all of us being under a quarantine. Some of us still are, some of us aren't anymore. But is what has that been like as far as putting all of that stuff together? Because you've got more videos. There's almost more Death Therapy content now than there has ever been in just a few short months. Has that been kind of motivating for you, or is it still kind of the demotivation of not being able to go out and play these songs for anybody?
Well, I mean, it has a lot to do with, like a lot of artists, there's really no other option right now. Can't go play concerts. So most of the festivals and stuff that were scheduled for June or early July have either canceled or been rescheduled. Some of them are trying to do stuff in late July, but I was already working on some new music, but my last record didn't come out until it came out in I want to say it was April of 2019. So here we are. It's only May. It's only been a year. So most bands don't release a new album every single year. They go on like a two album or 2 year cycle kind of thing. That's the tradition, at least. More people are starting to release more stuff more often, but I just thought, well, I'm kind of working on these instrumentals. I was kind of working on some other songs, and then all of a sudden the virus thing hit, and both of my jobs went away. I'm a substitute teacher, but I also work at a church as a contract worker, which means that when they're not having church meetings, I'm not there. So, and not getting paid. So, and then you could add to that my job is playing concerts and stuff. So yeah, I lost basically all of my livelihood to the virus, and it doesn't look like it's coming back anytime soon. Maybe September, some people are saying, but so I thought, well, I guess I'll just dive headlong into trying to write these 2 EPs, and started working on writing a devotional book as well, and I've written a few things here and there that maybe will be even more content for I'm trying to learn how to do some things. It's just kind of the nature of not have anything else to do. I've said to people for years, I said, well, if I just had the time and the money to just do this all the time, I mean, I could crank out 2, 3, 4, 5 EPs a year,
Right.
or in all sorts of different genres of music. So I guess I'm sort of trying to hold myself to that standard here, see what I can do.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome. And, like the rest of us, we've all got the time, maybe not so much the money.
Right.
But, so was that, I guess that was kind of your main thrust then, as far as getting these EPs kind of done and out. Was it kind of a way for you to possibly recoup costs from losing basically all forms of income?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I'm not a big enough artist that I'm really going to make much money off of the stuff, but the instrumental EP is something that I produced, recorded, mixed, did it all myself, other than the guest guitar solos. So the cost on that is virtually nothing other than just my time. So hopefully if people enjoy it and they go stream it and they, buy it and they, buy the songs on iTunes or whatever, hopefully that'll bring in, even if it's just a few $100s, that'll help, my family keep the lights on. And then working on the other stuff, I've done some pre-orders and stuff. And so even though that money will eventually have to go back out and be spent to produce the book or to produce the physical CDs, in the meantime, it's a little bit of, it sounds really lame to talk in terms of that, but it's liquid cash,
right?
To be able to get us through a few months, and then hopefully, the economy gets back on the horse, and, as things stabilize, well, okay, I can pull that money back out from a different direction,
Sure.
So anyhow, yeah, that's a little bit too much information, but
that's all good.
But yeah, just trying to make it work. There's a lot of bands doing that right now. I think, they're doing live concert, video type things, or they're recording lots of new music because they can't tour, and stuff. But yeah, I mean, playing concerts and touring and festivals and stuff, that's where most bands make their money anyway. It's through selling t-shirts and CDs, vinyls in person and stuff. It's not really from the streaming or the, CD online sales so much anymore. So
yeah, and you've throughout your career in Death Therapy and even Become the Archetype before that, you've kind of been on the receiving end of so much music industry change, just in the past, just in the past 20 years, how, your first band, Become the Archetype, you guys probably still cared about CD sales and, and all of that
Right.
stuff, like moving actual units. And then obviously everything goes to streaming. And then now we're kind of in this we're still kind of in the streaming era, but it's like the streaming mixed with vinyl. So I was just kind of wanting to see what your perspective was on all of that change and how you feel you've been able to deal with it over the past few years.
Yeah, I mean, definitely it's changed a lot. Like you said, I mean, the first Becoming the Archetype record came out in 2005, I want to say. And in 2005, the music industry was still almost entirely CD based. There was a little bit of the Napster thing kind of looming in the air, but it was not a huge thing. People still bought, if they wanted your music, they had to buy it. And the Christian metal thing was actually kind of a hot thing at the time, and lots of bands were big in that scene, and Solid State Records was a big deal. So the fact that we were a new band that signed to Solid State Records, and I mean, we sold, tens of thousands of copies of that record, that first record, which is why to this day that's most people's favorite record, is because
everyone has it.
By the time we got 2 or 3 more records in, people had stopped buying records so much. Some people have kind of come around to the third, which is my favorite, the third Becoming the Archetype record, which is called Dichotomy. I think that's the best record.
I agree.
People have come around over time, but my point is everyone bought the first one. And actually a lot of people bought the second one, just because anyway, the point being, Death Therapy has not experienced that. When it was time to release the very first Death Therapy record in 2017, I was having to prepare myself for really, really low numbers, compared to what I had experienced before. It was like, this is probably not even going to sell 1,000 copies first week,
Right.
Whereas in the olden days of the early 2000s, and prior, if it didn't sell 10,000 first week, it was, it was not uncommon for a small indie band on Solid State Records to sell 20,000 copies first week. But nowadays, if you can sell 500 to 1,000 copies, actual units, that's pretty rad. And then, you got to get the streams. You try to get to 100,000 streams or 1 million streams or whatever people's goal. I'm still small timer, so I'm shooting for 100,000. If I ever break 100,000 streams on a song, I'll be like, woohoo, I made it.
Yeah.
But it's weird. I'm just saying, it's weird how things have changed. The way I look at it is I could be really grumpy and I could be really, an old guy who says that people don't buy music anymore, and blah, blah, blah. But I just think that's the nature of the way the world is. People don't buy TV anymore. People don't buy, or they don't want to pay for cable anymore, which is weird because I think we're going to come back around and people are eventually going to start, bundling all their subscriptions again, which is going to be basically cable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And music may turn out to be the same way, but I think with music it's not, because people are so used to being able to just go to YouTube and just listen to whatever new band has come out with something, or go to Spotify and listen to it for free, or to listen to everything for the subscription each month. And I hear iTunes may go away at some point. It'll just be subscription based.
Yeah.
So, all of that kind of stuff, it's just totally changed. But at the end of the day, I mean, if people like your music, then they're going to listen to it. And I think it's just harder to get in front of people than it ever has been, because everything's so oversaturated. I mean, you know how that goes, right? I mean,
yeah. Oh my goodness.
How many people have a podcast? How many people have a radio show, especially during this quarantine? I've seen thousands of people saying, "Oh, I'm starting a podcast." And it's like, oh man, I hate that for all my buddies who are working so hard on a podcast.
Yeah, that's rough. Because, 3 years ago, I was one of them. Oh, I'm going to start a podcast, and everybody's great. It's like telling all your friends that you're writing a book. It's like, dude, nobody wants to hear about your book until it's already written and in my hands. You know what I mean? And that it can definitely be discouraging, for a music artist as well as with podcasting, because with podcasting, it's like, whenever you start, you just have to deal with, like what you said, very low numbers. Like literally nobody is going to care.
Yeah. How are you going to get the question? The whole question now with everything is how do you get it to people? How do you get it in front of people? I mean, if you're Joe Rogan and you have a podcast deal with Spotify, well, they put it in front of everybody. and everyone hears it. And he also has massive famous celebrities on every time. But if you're just a new person starting up, even if your content is amazing, and this is the same case for a band, let's just say that, this Death Therapy EP of instrumentals is the most interesting and creative, metal dubstep electronic music that's ever been made. Well,
yeah.
It doesn't make a difference if I can't get it in front of people. So all you can hope for is that, people will share it around grassroots and it'll get to people. And then, of course, everybody and their mothers nowadays tries to hit you up, which this never happened in the old days. But nowadays it's all, hey, if you pay me this much money, I'll get you on this playlist. And if you pay me this much money, I'll, mention you on my Facebook page, and you pay this much, and it's like, what, really?
Yeah.
For an old school guy like me, it's like, oh no, I figure if my music's good, people will listen to it. But
right.
I'm having to learn, no, that's not how it works. Like, if your music's good, then you should be willing to invest the money to get it in front of people, or create the content or whatever. So like you said, tying this back together, I've tried to create a lot more videos and a lot more, content and other stuff, because I realized if I don't, the music just goes out there and sort of falls flat. A lot of people checked out the first Death Therapy record, and then they were kind of like, okay, cool, I kind of know what this is now. And so the second record just totally bombed. Like almost nobody, to put in perspective, and I'm not trying to gripe, but I'm saying, to put in perspective, the instrumental single I just put out, Guardian Awakening, 2.5 weeks ago, it already almost has more streams than the most popular songs from the last record, which, oddly enough, when I do polls of our fans who are actually engaged fans, they're like, oh, those are my favorite songs. They love the second record. And they love those songs. But then the music industry at large just kind of was like, yeah, cool, we checked out the first record. It was kind of industrial. maybe we liked it, maybe we didn't. Okay, whatever. And then they moved along. The second record came out, and it wasn't a thing. So I've got to, this is my little pep talk for musicians or podcasters or whoever's out there, is like, I've got to adapt and work harder. If I believe in my music, and I do, I love making music. I don't do it as a job. I do it because I love it, and I don't know what else to do. I don't have any other thing. I don't have another option. So yeah, that's my little take on how to, I'm having to learn to adapt, and yeah.
Do you think that whenever you first started Death Therapy, that there was there might have been not a concern, but do you think that a lot of that success of the first record was largely tied into people checking it out that were fans of your previous band, and maybe either, I don't know, not finding that it wasn't the same band, or it wasn't the same product?
I think so. I think the first record got some attention because people were like, oh, cool. And then they checked it out and they were like, yeah, it's not really becoming the archetype. And so then by the time the second record came out, which oddly enough, in my opinion, the second record has at least 3 songs, maybe 4, that are very close. They're closer to becoming the archetype in some ways. But by the time those songs came around, they were kind of over it. They were kind of like, yeah, Death Therapy is not becoming the archetype. So then that leads to where we are now. And that's where I've decided, I'm just going to try to do what I'm not going to force anything. I'm not going to try to force Death Therapy to be more like becoming the archetype. I'm not going to try to force it to be more like what's cool on Solid State Records. I'm just going to let it be what it is, because the people who've come in and stuck around with Death Therapy or have come in the door in the last couple years have largely done so because they kind of like that it's different. They like the electronic stuff. They like the weird, they like that it's not, breakdown, singing catchy chorus, heavy blast beats, breakdown, catchy singing chorus, metalcore or whatever. So yeah, I'm just going to go as hard as I can in that direction. And with Death Therapy, I never tried to force anything anyway. But I do think with the second record, I thought to myself, well, I'll put a few songs on here that are a little bit more becoming the archetype. The first single that we released from that one is a song called My Defiance, and it's very metalcore. It's got 3 big breakdowns in the song. And
yeah,
I didn't force that, but looking back, every time we play that song live, I'm just kind of like, yeah, that just doesn't, it's just not me, I'm not that guy anymore. 20-year-old me would have been like, this is the heaviest song, but 36-year-old me is like, I just need some groove, and I need a cool little, a keyboard lick and something funky going on, and that's what I want. And, so yeah, I think that's what happened. I think some people checked it out. They bailed out after that, but now people who've stuck around, I think, are going to be here for the long haul, and we'll see if I can keep giving them stuff that they're interested in. So,
sure, yeah. I mean, it's a lot like starting over in a way. Maybe if those old fans aren't satiated,
right.
there's new fans.
It's totally starting over for the reason I just said, but also because I was gone from the music scene essentially from 2010 to 2017. So 7 years in music is actually a long time, but 7 years between 2010 and 2017, the whole industry and the whole world changed dramatically. So for me to come back, even if I had come back with a band that sounded exactly like Becoming the Archetype, there was going to be a huge drop-off of people who don't even remember who Becoming the Archetype was,
right.
Or of people who remember who Becoming the Archetype was, but now they've moved on with their life and they don't pay attention to that kind of music anymore, or, you know what I mean, whatever else. So there's a whole new generation of, like, the people who are fans of Fit for a King and Silent Planet. I could walk into a room with 100 of them and say, hey, do you know Becoming the Archetype? And like less than half of them would even have heard, which seems crazy because it's like, wait a second, that was one of the bands that was big on the record label, a few years before you guys got big on the record label. But it's just different crowds, different time, different generation, basically. It's sort of like when I was in Becoming the Archetype and we were touring and we were playing with, we did a tour. Okay, for instance, we did a tour with Living Sacrifice, The Showdown, and The Famine, right?
Yeah.
Well, the guys in The Famine were in one of my favorite bands ever, Embodiment. But most of the people that were out there at those shows didn't know who Embodiment was.
Right. Some not even
weird.
Living Sacrifice. I remember seeing a tour.
And even Living Sacrifice was considered kind of like, they were like the old guys on the tour, which is crazy to me. I still love them to this day. They're one of my favorites ever. My point is, though, I just did a cover song that somebody asked me to do of a Vengeance Rising song, which came out when I was 5 years old in 1988. Well, it was fun, and I did that song, and I have enough friends who were really, really into that scene that I knew who they were. But my point is, even 90% of the BTA fans don't really know what Vengeance Rising. You know what I mean? And that's just one generation before BTA. And then, so my point being, things change, they move along. In a way, I kind of like it. It's kind of like a fun challenge, to start over. It's like I'm building a band completely from scratch. I don't even tell people anymore when I post stuff online or when I ask for shows. I don't go, hey, I used to be in Becoming an Archetype. Half of them just look at me and go, who?
Right. Yeah.
What good does that do? I mean, so I'm not trying to say Becoming the Archetype won't ever have a reunion or something. Who knows? I wouldn't say that door is completely shut forever, but yeah, I mean, Death Therapy is a new thing. It's different. Maybe it'll work. But the fun part about it and the cool part about it is that I set it up to be something I can do on my own. And because of that, I won't ever have to worry about the band breaking up.
Right.
So I could essentially, sort of like Trent Reznor with Nine Inch Nails. I mean, is Nine Inch Nails ever going to break up? I mean, no.
Not as long as he wants to do it. Yeah.
Not as long as Trent Reznor wants to make music and call it Nine Inch Nails, So that's kind of my goal with Death Therapy. Not to try to be the Christian alternative to Trent Reznor, but I'm just
no. And
that door is kind of there. I mean, my musical heroes are people like Trent Reznor, Devin Townsend. They're these kinds of people who are, they just kept making music even after quote unquote their prime, and it's still amazing, and people love it, So
no, that's awesome. And one of the questions I had too, with Death Therapy being on Solid State. And you had talked about this a little bit on Facebook, but I'm not going to lie, I just skimmed through it because I was busy when I was reading through it.
TLDR.
And you also know how, like, if you start to read a Facebook comment and then one of your buddies walks up to you and says something, and then you put your phone in your pocket, and then you look back it up, and it's like, oh, I'm never going to find that post again.
Yeah, totally.
But you were talking about how your new EP, the instrumental EP, was basically just released by you.
Right.
Does that mean you're still with Solid State, or you're?
No, currently I'm not with Solid State. So for people who don't know how record contracts work, record label will sign you to a certain number of albums. And then when you fulfill that, you can if they're interested, they'll renew your contract for a certain number of whatever, it's just like an athlete, you know what I mean? Certain number of years, seasons or whatever. So I did 2 albums. That was my deal, with them. And I've talked to them about this new stuff, and I'm not going to say that it's not possible that the next EP, the one that has vocals and stuff, that one might come out on Solid State, if they're interested. But when this coronavirus thing hit, I kind of had to put some things into motion quickly. And, if I had waited, all of this content that people are seeing in these songs that are coming out right now that keep giving me a little momentum, that stuff may still be just sort of sitting on the shelf, with the record label waiting until, we think we'll have a good window to release this in September or something,
Sure.
Record labels don't move quickly. They have other bands to deal with, and they have other things. But if it's just me, I just said, hey, you know what? Let's start putting these songs out. Let's let people hear them. I'm going to go ahead and, manufacture the CDs, and I'll start mailing them out as soon as they get here. It's a little bit more free. It's a little bit more risky and crazy. But during this crazy, risky, coronavirus mess, I thought, well, I'm just going to go for it. And it'll really be a treat anyway, just mainly for the super fan kind of people who are into it anyway. I think some people who are a little bit more on the periphery of being fans are kind of like, yeah, okay, instrumentals. I'll wait until you give me something else with vocals. These are fine and all, but it's not really what I'm looking for. It's just biting. They're just biding their time and waiting. But I think some people, though, for them, this is a really special kind of thing that they're going to get during this, lockdown thing that they would not. I'm not going to say it wouldn't have come out otherwise, but I feel like the lockdown pushed me into a corner where I created a lot of instrumental content. So
yeah, and I think you're right. For there's going to be that guy that bought or girl that buys gets the physical version sent to them from you personally. And, let's say you do sign to a new label, or you go back with Solid State or whatever, and they decide to put those songs out, again themselves or whatever, and it becomes not as special, and
right.
The only other example I can think about with that is when Project 86 left Atlantic Records. And they put out their next album completely independent, and then they got picked up by Tooth and Nail, and they re-released it, but like me and my buddies are still like, oh yeah, but I've still got the original version of that. So there's definitely a fan connection there. And I think it's cool though. I mean, like whenever I'm on Facebook, I see, a Death Therapy update. I see I mean, we're friends on Facebook, so I see your personal updates too. But yeah, you've been very, very prolific online, and in a lot of ways, kind of leading a charge on this kind of stuff. But to speak to other types of music too, there's something that I wanted to ask, and I don't remember how long or if this is even something that happened. But I was talking to Clank the other day. And I remember a long time ago, this is probably a couple years ago now that I think about it, but Clank was on, he was on the As the Story Grows podcast, and they were asking, and Travis asked him, he was talking about Death Therapy, and he was talking about like, oh yeah, I'd love to collaborate or something. Did you guys ever end up making any plans to do any collaborations together? Yeah.
I mean, we've been talking about it and working on something. It's not, nothing's done, but it's definitely, we've sent some stuff back and forth, and we're working on some stuff. So it's definitely going to happen at some point. I mean, he and I get along great, and I like the music that he writes and that Pat writes. And, so yeah, I think we'll have something at some point, but nothing definite right now.
No, that's cool. Whenever him and I were talking, I think my interview with him went for much longer probably than this one will go, because that one was like 2 hours long. But he had a lot to say, and I wasn't going to stop him, So
yeah, I got you.
But Yeah, he had just mentioned somebody that he was collaborating with, and I just, in the back of my head, like a little bell went off, and I was like, I need to add, I need to find out more about that. But no, that's cool. That's definitely something to look forward to. But so I mean, obviously, any tour plans that were made are gone. You being a little bit more inside baseball on the industry, what kind of projections are people making as far as when people will be able to start getting out on the road again?
I mean, I think that it's very possible that we'll start seeing some festivals and things happening in July. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's totally possible that it's not going to last that much longer. Unfortunately, it canceled a lot of bands' tours that they already had for the spring. I mean, canceled everybody's tours for the spring. But I'm just saying, hopefully we won't see a resurgence of this thing in the fall that causes another lockdown, because then that would be brutal for bands who, they've pushed all their plans for the year into the fall.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I really don't know. I really don't know any more than anybody does when it comes to that. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm always wondering, and my biggest thing is I've already got like tickets and hotel and stuff for the Furnace Fest that was that's still, I mean, it's still technically supposedly happening, but I just don't see it with the amount of because I ask everybody that question now about like, well, what's the projected date, and I always get a lot of different answers. You were safe about it, and you're like, well, we'll see, but some people have said 2021, some people have said probably not until fall, that sort of thing. So I'm just worried about that festival, especially getting postponed or something like that, just because of how big of a deal in the lineup and everything. And that was another question I had for you. Did you guys ever have any interest in doing that, or did anybody even talk to you about it?
I tried to approach them. Like a lot of bands, I'm sure I tried to approach them, but no, I never got in. I never had any luck with that, and was not approached. No, not for BTA or for Death Therapy stuff. And I mean, that kind of makes sense. The bands that they're going with are humongous artists, and I would be just thrilled. I even considered at one point, I heard that you could pay like $5,000 to play an early slot or something. You could like buy your way in, and I considered it. I thought about it, but I'm just not. I don't have that kind of cash laying around.
Yeah, right. I mean, I hear that. No, it's definitely something that and I'm with you. We tried hard to get like press and stuff like that, but I don't even know if they're doing press officially for it or any of it. But that's neither here nor there. But I think one of the coolest aspects of Death Therapy, to bring it back onto you, one of my favorite things about Death Therapy is the dipping into the, let's say, nostalgic video game genre.
Retro games, yeah.
Yeah. Is that something that you're doing just because you think it's cool, or is it something that you have a personal connection with as far as retro gaming?
Yeah, no, I mean, I love when people ask what are my musical influences. I mean, a lot of my musical influences come from playing a lot of video games, and I love the classic video game music. There is one of the instrumentals that's on this coming up. I mean, all these instrumentals have an element of the gaming retro kind of vibe, but there's one in particular that's called Cheat Code 87, and it's very like arcade video game nostalgia kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, I just love that kind of stuff. So I thought, well, why not make that sort of a part of what I do? I mean, I'm already doing electronic stuff anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, I've been wanting to ask you that question ever since I saw the BTA video for, I think it was Magnetic Sky, where you guys were
totally
in an RPG,
Totally.
Do you still retro game now?
A little bit. I actually played some, I played through with my kids tonight. I played through, Kirby's Superstar Saga, like just one of the little, things that's in that, one of the little games.
Mini games, yeah.
With the kids. Yeah, it was pretty fun. So yeah, I mean, we just we play a little bit of that. The kids like to play Animal Crossing, and the kids like to play some Zelda and other things. So we play a little bit of new games, a little bit of old games. I really like current games too. I mean, but I don't play a lot of like the popular current game. I mean, I guess I take that back. Animal Crossing is insanely popular. But
I was going to say, yeah.
I mean, I guess what I mean is I don't play Call of Duty. I don't play Fortnite or whatever. I mean, I've never gotten into those games.
Yeah.
I play the stuff that I think is fun. I loved Hollow Knight. That was one of my favorite games ever. I played that recently. I'm playing a game called Celeste, which is like a retro kind of platformer. I love it. It's amazing. So yeah, I tend to go more for the retro. The only I guess you could call modern-ish game that I've played recently is Dragon Quest 11.
Oh, you're kidding me. That's awesome. I was just playing that last night. I felt
I enjoyed that. That was fun. I've always liked the Dragon Quest games. So, but yeah. So yeah, I mean, video games is, I don't need, I play maybe twice a week, tops for like a 30 minutes at a time.
Same,
nowadays. My kids play more than I do, but yeah, I love playing video games. To me, it's a lot of fun. So.
Oh, that's awesome. No, it's cool. Do you play any game? Like, do you have any older retro systems, or is it all just kind of like the stuff you can get? I know you can get a lot of those games on newer consoles now too.
Yeah, I used to, and then I sold them because people started paying a lot of money for classic stuff. So I was able to get $800 for a box of NES cartridge games, that I wasn't playing anymore. So,
right.
And that kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't have them anymore. We still have a Wii, and we still have a Wii U that has all the Wii stuff on it. And we have the virtual console stuff that I paid for back in those days. And so that's a lot of the retro stuff. But then also the Switch, has the subscription thing, the Nintendo Online, which is pretty cheap, and that gets you access to some Super Nintendo, and and I could say that I was playing that with the kids tonight, playing some Kirby, and playing some Mario, and they love that stuff. So
very cool. It's always good to talk to a fellow adult that also enjoys playing games from our childhood as well as new ones. It's funny, I was trying to play that Dragon Quest game last night, but I was so tired that I ended up, because I did another interview that went on for a long time, and it was Joe from Lightworker. I was trying to who did I talk to last night? But I talked to him for so long, and then I went to I was like, oh, I'll play a game for a few minutes. I started playing and killing slimes left and right, and then before I know it, it's morning, and my 6-year-old's downstairs being like, Dad, you have to get up to go to work. And I was like, okay, thank you.
Totally.
So, but
well, we're not going to go that long. I actually
no, I
have to go here pretty soon. But
yeah, no, I'm closing it down here.
Joe has the advantage that he's another hour behind you. I have the disadvantage of it's already 9:15 here. So
right, he's 2 hours behind me. Yeah.
Oh, is he? Yeah, that's right. He's 2 hours. He's in California.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, so you guys have a song coming called Terra Infirma with Jack Daniels from War of Ages, used to be in Hope for the Dying.
Yeah.
And that's looking cool. I've watched the teaser a few times for all 12 seconds of it, and it'll definitely probably be out it'll definitely already be out by the time this podcast posts. So go check that out if you haven't checked it out yet.
Yes, please do. I don't think people understand. I have a lot of fans who are my age, right? And people my age, I've noticed they're 50-50 on the streaming thing. So half of them are like, no, I hate streaming. It doesn't pay artists anything. And I love those people, right? Because they're like, I got to buy the physical, the vinyl, and I'm like, I love you. Please buy the physical. Please buy the vinyl. But the problem is that means half of my fans for the music never stream the music at all, which means my streaming numbers are usually half of what any band my size would have, which is pretty terrible. It makes it look bad. And people might say, who cares? I mean, you're selling records, then why do you care? Well, the streaming thing, this is what people need to understand. Streaming is kind of like the new radio. So back in the day, if you got your song played on radio, that was a big deal, right? And you could get exposed to new fans and get new opportunities. Well, nowadays, if you get streams, you could get on playlists, which are like radio stations. But if you don't get streams, it's like if your Spotify is just empty, nobody goes there, not only does the industry look at it and go, these guys are nothing, but then you never get discovered by those millions of people who are on Spotify, you know, and the algorithm is telling them, hey, check out Death Therapy. That doesn't happen for us. So not to complain, but to tell people, hey, if you go stream our songs, it really does help. Because I guess what I'm trying to say is, a lot of times I think people think, oh, well, it doesn't really help them very much. You know, it really does. I've learned, especially, you know, as an old school guy in the new school era, it does help. I mean, just like, you know, if you got a podcast and people go download it, that helps. Like, I mean, people may think, well, it's, you know, they're not making any money. I don't get how it helps.
Right.
But it helps. You know, it does.
Oh, it definitely helps. Cause like, I mean, on the podcast side, once you hit a certain number of downloads, you can start, you know, like if I, let's say I was getting 100,000 downloads per episodes, I'm nowhere close to that. But if I was, then I would have stopped mid conversation and been like, let me tell you guys about these razors I've been using, you know, like,
exactly.
and that, so that's a way.
Advertisers.
Exactly. So, you know, that's the goal for any podcast, and for, you know, and for musicians, it's the same thing where, you know, you can, you once you have those numbers, it's a perfect,
I want razor, the razor deal.
There you go. It's like
right in the middle of my song. I'm just going to stop and be like, let me tell you about these razors this food box that sends you snacks to your door.
Right.
Now, you know that's going to happen eventually, and that's going to be terrifying.
Well, I think that's why a lot of bands do merchandising. Like, I think it was Lamb of God just put out a beer, like a non-alcoholic beer, which is kind of weird. But, but then you see all these bands putting beers and different types of merchandise, like off the beaten path merchandise. And I think it's very much the same thing. They can partner with a bigger brand, and like, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, totally.
But all right, man. Well, in wrapping up, I'm gonna hop off of here. But I just want to thank you so much for taking the time out and kind of updating, at the very least, our listeners. If anybody follows you on Facebook, you know, they're already up to date. But like I said, it was too long, didn't read, so I was like, I'll just call Jason and ask him questions and get answers that everybody else knows but me. So
that works perfect, and you get to hear me rambling about different things, you know, shouting at the sky.
There it is. Man. Perfect. Well, hopefully everybody stays off your lawn. And
stay off my lawn.
We will.
But, you know, here's the thing. There's got to be at least some of your listeners who they think Death Therapy, maybe they checked out before, they thought it was kind of cool, but they didn't like the screaming. Well, instrumentals is perfect solution. Or maybe they, you know, this is a weird thing, but a lot of people my age have small children. I've totally found that the kids love the like instrumental dance kind of stuff. So maybe it could become like a thing. Maybe like, you know, dad metal dance party music or something. I don't know.
we can make it happen for sure.
Hey, so there's got to be some market share there somewhere that's not being tapped into.
Absolutely.
There's only one kids metal band that I know of, and they're from Finland, and they don't sing in English, and they dress up like dinosaurs.
That sounds amazing.
They're called Heavy Saurus. They're, like I said, they're from Finland. But that's just one. There's got to be some room somewhere for me to squeeze into the heavy metal dad market. So
that is something that I'm going to have you follow up the next time we talk, and be like, so how are we doing on this dad metal thing?
Yeah, totally.
Sweet. All right, man. Well, you have yourself a great night, and we'll catch up soon.
Sounds good.